Welcome everyone to the first ever Inside the Crazy Ant Farm behind the scenes, and we've been talking about it. We'll talk about it a little bit. We're going to be talking about streaming today, the evolution of streaming, really, and how kind of Corona put this shit in full gear.
It's been, I don't know, the demise of linear television has been happening for quite a while now, but I don't think anybody saw it progressing to the point where it would disintegrate as fast as it appears to be disintegrating.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, like I said, it's crazy to think about, like, the impact streaming has had on the average family viewer, because, like, everybody can just sit down and watch whatever they want to watch, binge watch, as Netflix has coined the term. But it's just crazy to think about how that's going to take away from, like, scheduled programming for cable and internet.
Yeah, it's the whole thing. I mean, you really got to kind of go back and look at it from like the very beginning with in the 80s, where you basically, coming into the 80s, you basically had three channels.
Yeah.
ABC, CBS, and NBC. They were the big three networks even before Fox.
Yeah.
And then a guy by the name of Ted Turner.
That guy.
He kind of revolutionized the game with cable. And, HBO was around before that, but him and Jerry Levin, they kind of they got this idea, and then Turner just blew it up with cable channels providing content for people. And it was basically for a long time competing with the big three networks, and that was one of Ted Turner's big things, is like competing with the big three networks.
Right.
It was difficult in the early days because nobody wanted to give content to the cable channels. So he had to go about roundabout ways to find content to put on there. But as it progressed, and the reason I'm bringing this up is because it's kind of what's happening now. As it progressed, cable grew, and networks started to go down a little bit, and the reason being is because cable provided 24/7 access. It provided different content. It provided the ability to watch it basically when you wanted to, and from a revenue standpoint, it was the best of both worlds, because these conglomerates, and back then they weren't nearly as large as they are now, but they rightfully found out that you can receive two streams of revenue with cable as opposed to just network television, and that being subscription costs. Because back then, when you ordered cable, your cable bill, you were basically paying for each channel, and then a cut of that would go to the company that was providing those channels. So they were selling ad revenue. So you were getting the same type of revenue that you would on network television based on selling ads during your shows. But then on top of that, you were also getting that piece from the revenue share of subscription costs.
Right.
So they were getting two forms of income, and it just kind of blew up.
Yeah.
And I think now that the key to, and what the streamers are going to try to do, I think, is that sort of a platform of, can we balance revenue? Can we have these subscription costs where you sign up for Netflix, you sign up, for Hulu, and you pay these monthly fees, but then can we find a way to capitalize on the advertisers and these companies that are now going to have to find a way to put their product out there without linear television? And are the fans gonna want that? I mean, we've seen a lot of pushback, a lot of feedback, like, I don't want a commercial during my show on Netflix. So where is that gonna go?
That's the real question. Like, because they make so much money, especially like the networks, they make so much money off of the ad revenue. And like you said, putting them in between like the shows, I don't think is a good idea, because we saw the backlash about like a year and a half ago, 2 years, that rumor has it that Netflix was gonna put ads on their shit. And like everybody was super upset about it, but I don't know. I feel like maybe an ad at the beginning and an ad at the end would probably not get as much backlash, because you don't have to interrupt their programming that they are watching. And I mean, going back to what you were saying about Turner and everything he was doing with the television industry and things like that. Now, I mean, with the various different like genres of television and different type of TV shows and things like that, people can choose what they want to watch when they want to watch it. And I feel
Right.
like that's why people have gotten so like, I don't want to say selfish, but like they're definitely like, if this is my show, I don't want anything to interrupt it. But yeah, I think an ad at the beginning and an ad at the end would probably be a good balance. Maybe even 2 at the beginning and 3 at the end, something along those lines. But yeah, with the growth and the evolution of streaming services getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and more people cutting the cord, I feel like they have to put ads somewhere, because that's a great way to make money, especially with Netflix, who has so much debt right now. They're buying like everything off the market basically, and but they have so much debt that they're paying out to actors, production companies, and everybody underneath the sun. So I mean, they got to figure out a way to make more money, because
Yeah.
like they have the content, but they are also losing a shit ton of money.
Well, and I mean, it's a good point with choice.
Yeah.
I mean, to put it in perspective, we talked about it a little bit on the main podcast, but back in the day, just like just recently, the story that we had with Who's the Boss. I mean, 34 million viewers.
Yeah.
For the whole 7-year run,
Yeah.
basically. Now, I mean, the one that pops to my mind is when This Is Us debuted.
Yeah.
6.5 million people, and that was considered a massive hit.
Yeah.
Now, if you're averaging 3 or 4 million, you're considered a hit. Back in the day, 34 million viewers compared to
Exactly.
6.5 now. And that's because back then, you had what network gave you.
Yeah.
And that was it.
Yeah.
And basically, so that's a problem. And looking at the recent numbers, it's going to get a little tricky because I was looking at the breakdown, and especially amongst young 18 to 24 and 24 to 45, they're not so fond of original content.
Yeah.
In fact, when they broke down the numbers, they said and this is problematic for the new streamers coming in, 15%, only 15% of that age group said that they were even interested in turning on an original show.
Oh, wow.
On HBO Max. It got even worse for the Peacock. It was 6% for the Peacock. They don't care. The numbers aren't much better. It was 30 or 40% for Netflix. So
Yeah.
they're not even concerned about original content on Netflix. That age group wants their old shows.
Yeah.
And that's going to be problematic for Netflix, I think, moving forward, because they are, like you said, you brought up a valid point. They are massively in debt because they have spent literally billions of dollars on original content.
Yeah.
And looking into this and doing some research, that's the reason they're canceling all these shows so early after only 2 or 3 seasons, even though they're hits, because that debt is coming due. They've got balloon payments that are about to hit that they owe, and they cannot afford to keep paying the production costs on these hit shows and make those payments. And so that's going to be a problem moving forward, because if they run into an issue where they can't keep these original shows on, people aren't interested in these original shows, and then they don't have the money to accumulate the old shows, where does that leave Netflix?
Exactly.
Who right now is dominating the market, obviously, but they've got Disney Plus crawling up quick.
Yeah.
And where does that go? Because Netflix, unlike Disney Plus, doesn't have that library.
Exactly.
They don't have that content that Disney Plus has. So
Well, I feel like right now everybody's just testing the waters to see what's the best to do right now. I mean, with the dying of television and cable, when obviously streaming's been around for at least 10 years now. Netflix has been around for at least 10 years, at least streaming-wise. They're just trying to test the waters, especially with original content. And I mean, just the second quarter alone in 2020, 1.3 million homes dropped cable or satellite TV.
Yeah, and it's funny that you bring up the 10-year, because the 10-year correlation, cable was at its peak 10 years
10 years
ago,
ago.
with over 109 million cable subscribers. Over the past 10 years, that has dropped down to just a little over 80. It's like 82 million now. They expect by 2023 it's going to drop down to 78 million and probably completely demised by 2025 or 2026.
Yeah.
It's drastically dropping as the streamers are increasing.
Yeah.
So that is definitely an interest. But I think the problem, like I said, for the streamers is how do they integrate? Because right now, the one thing that was successful for cable is that all of your stuff was right there.
Right.
It was like you had, now granted, I see a lot of people talking about, I pay for 109 channels, but I watch 12.
Yeah.
And so, but back in the beginning, though, it was that luxury of having all those channels in one place you could just go to. So, and we talk about this all the time. I think that maybe the future for these streamers is what Apple is attempting to do, which is to bring all these streamers together in one place, put out one cost, and then have all of these streamers share in the revenue of that one cost.
Exactly. Well, yeah, I compiled a list. Apple TV, obviously $6. CBS All Access ad-free is $10. Peacock Premium ad-free is $10. Amazon Prime, $12 for the video part. The Disney bundle with Hulu and ESPN, $13. HBO Max, $15. Netflix Premium, $16. Now, of course, there's the lower tiers, but with all the top tier things, that's all together, it's $82.
Right.
So,
Which is,
I mean, that's not, if you get it down to like, we were talking about $70 for all the streamers, and plus on top of that, internet, which could be like $50 to $70. That's going to be cheaper than your cable and internet.
Exactly, and like I think it's smart to do a discounted price because $80-something that's higher than an average cable bill right now.
Yeah.
If you were to get all the streamers, but if you were to discount that, if you were to do like Apple is doing with Viacom CBS and you do it at like a 50%.
Yeah.
So you bring all your streamers down to like $40-$45 for all your streamers in one place. I think that's a no-brainer. I think everybody signs up for that.
Exactly.
And then you pay your whatever it is for your internet access, $30, $40, $50 if you want, high-end streaming, fast speeds and stuff. But then you're looking at like $60, $70 total for all of your content. And I feel like people would be willing to pay that for all of their streamers. And then even more so, I think you do a tiered platform.
Definitely.
I'm with you. I don't think anybody would have a problem if before your show starts, you got to watch a couple of ads.
Yeah.
And then in between shows, in between episodes, you got to watch 3 more ads.
Yeah.
I think the problematic area is
breaking it up.
Yeah, stopping it right in the, and they, at least on the ones that I've seen, like on the CW and the different things, it's like in the middle of a scene that they break it for an ad. Like, at least wait until it would have been a normal commercial break on television. They do it in like the middle of the most odd places.
Yeah.
And nobody wants that.
No.
I also like the idea of that they were talking about event type ads.
Yeah.
Where like they'll stream the Super Bowl and ads will play during event type programming.
That makes sense.
That's a smart move too. I think nobody is going to be, especially sporting events. I think some of the most fun stuff during the Super Bowl is watching the commercials and seeing, all of the stuff. So I think that's a smart move also.
Yeah.
It's just going to be, the flood of, I think HBO Max and Warner Media, they've got budgeted $5 billion for original content this year.
Yeah.
Disney Plus is $3 billion. The Peacock and Comcast, which is Viacom CBS, they're spending each like $2 billion.
Yeah.
I think that's too much. I think you could really run into a problem overloading yourself with debt, which I think they're going to see Netflix run into that problem here. When all the numbers are showing it's not necessarily original programming that the younger viewers want. The older viewers, I think they're digging it, but we all know the target age, for advertisers, if you're going to do ads at the front, ads at the back, it's 18 to 24, and they don't want it. They want their classics. They want Friends. They want, so do you spend $5 billion on original content? I mean,
And I mean, which you're even spending that amount on like this type of content. I mean, we saw how much that Netflix had to pay to still keep Friends for international. They had to pay like stupid 200 million or something stupid crazy like that for international, just international streaming. And then on top of that, Seinfeld coming over to Netflix in the near future, they had to pay an obscene amount for that as well. But I mean, it's obvious though that everything is shifting gears, especially for the studios who have started their own streaming service. Everything has shifted gears towards the streaming service. Everybody except Disney. They still have their branch, I feel like, and they're still like focusing on original content for that, but that's still not the most important part yet. I mean, we're seeing HBO Max and the Peacock like doing massive layoffs. We saw last week and reported on it on episode 125 of Inside the Crazy Ant Farm that roughly like 600 people at HBO or Warner Media and Warner Brothers got laid off, and on top of that, the DC universe got laid off, like some very high ups as well, and then of course NBC Universal is laying off like 10% of their staff. So I mean, everything is heavily focusing towards streaming, but even still talking about Netflix and things like that, who I feel like all these streamers are trying to chase, I mean, they still are learning. They don't know what is hitting and what's really not yet. So, I mean, it's like a diamond in the rough. Every like 10 shows, there's probably one at Netflix that is like a huge following.
Right.
So it's an interesting concept because I mean, obviously we weren't around for like the beginning of cable, but we're like all of the cable.
I was.
Were you? See, I was trying to give you a pass.
No, it's fine.
I was trying to give you a pass.
It's fine.
But like, I'm just thinking, were like all of these networks following one network, or were they like trying to come up with their own content and compete their own like individual ways, or were they trying to follow one network like all the streamers are trying to follow Netflix?
Well, Ted really revolutionized. He saw that people were interested not necessarily in what was going on the network big three. He was like, he bought up rights to reruns to old shows, black and white shows, and old movies. And he realized that there were people up in the middle of the night that would tune in and watch those old movies. They'd rather watch the Mary Tyler Moore Show or the Dick Van Dyke Show than tune in and watch what was going on during prime time. And so that's where it really kind of started to revolutionize, like all these other channels like USA and Discovery and all these, where they're like, hey, we can buy up these old programs, you know, like Nick at Night, and put out and like really find an audience that wants that. So I think even now, like what we were just talking about, maybe these streamers are chasing Ted. Even back, because Ted knew that it was old content that could potentially kick off what became the huge cable genre. Well, it's old content that could potentially make the streamers, you know, where they need to be.
That's what it seems like.
So, I mean, that's really interesting. And I like the fact that we brought up Disney, because I think that Disney is not necessarily focused all on original content or this or that for their streamer, because Disney, you know, last year had 7 films cross the $1 billion mark at the box office. I mean, they're still focused on theatrical because they're one of the only studios that has, over the past several years, had successful tentpole movies, franchises that people want to go see. In those, the other studios have been struggling. They've all been trying to copy the MCU. They've all been trying to hit these big tentpole movies, and none have been really successful. So it only makes sense that they're like, well, fuck it, let's go to streaming. But Disney's still got a play at the theaters. So that makes sense to me. And so then the question becomes, do the streamers, do they become like the old studios where they break up divisions? Do they have a television division and a film division? And we know that they're kind of structuring that way, and they're putting them all under one person's control. But what I'm saying is, like, do they focus on, you are solely responsible for making films for our streamer, and you are solely responsible for television for our streamer, And then moving forward, it's like, where does that leave theatrical?
Right.
We see Netflix doing it. Netflix is pumping out $200 million movies left and right for the streamer, not for theatrical release.
Yeah.
So, is that going to be the move by these other streamers? Do they start to make these tentpole movies for their streamers?
Right.
And then we haven't even brought up now that everything's going to kind of reverse from the old Paramount ruling. Where the studios can go back to owning majority stakes in theaters.
Yeah, which is scary.
where does that, like? I mean, for me, I would think that's Disney's logical play is to buy up a lot of stock,
as many as he can,
in some, and then use that for your tentpole movies.
Mm-hmm.
Where does that leave artists, indie artists,
right?
And your artsy films,
who want to have that theatrical release, who want to have people butts in the seats to see their films in a theater, because like Martin Scorsese and like a lot of people at A24 under Apple, that they love that shit. I mean, of course they have the whole thing with their streaming content, but I mean, a theatrical experience is something you cannot take away from somebody. I feel like.
No, and there are certain films that you just want to see it like that. You want to be amongst a crowd of people. You want to be hearing the cheers and then or the oohs and ahs of what they're watching, and you. I don't care how large your flat screen is at home or how great your stereo system is. It's not the same.
Even the most introvert person, when they go out to a movie theater during Endgame, when Captain America gets fucking the hammer, everybody was cheering like crazy. And it's a fun experience, like you said, because you feel like you're a part of something. That's what it is. You feel like you're a part of something bigger than yourself. And I feel like taking away the theatrical experience is really going to be interesting, especially like with this new deal that Universal just signed with AMC, which was weird because, like we talked about before on the podcast, they were beefing a little bit, but now taking away putting in place this new deal to where instead of a 90-day window before it could be released on a streaming service, now it's only 17.
Yeah.
And like that's not even a whole month. So like, why would you even go to the theater if you can just wait less than a month to see it on streaming? I feel like that's probably a bad decision on the theater's part, because I feel like that could kick them in the kidneys and kill theaters faster.
Well, I think the solution is, I think these studios, they buy majority stakes in these theaters, and you shut down cineplexes.
Yeah.
You go back to marquee, 1 screen, 2 screens max in a building. You drastically lower the ticket price.
Yeah.
Right now, you're paying $20 a pop for a ticket because you have to pay for 17 screens.
Exactly.
And that means 17, well, not prints anymore because they're digital, but you know what I mean? You have to pay for 17 movies, to be in there. And that's why the ticket prices are so high. You go back to 1, 2 screens, you can drastically lower the ticket prices again, and you can use it as an event type. This is the one you have to see in the theaters.
Yeah.
And it's only going to be this much money. You go, you have that experience, and then you
well, and especially I feel like if you do that as well, people would cut back on the complaining on concession prices, because I feel like theaters make a lot of money solely on concessions. So I feel like that would help immensely for them to get more revenue and not have to split it with the studios.
Right. I mean, because a lot of people don't realize that, the theater chains, the reason those concessions are so high is because for every dollar, they only get 30 cents.
Exactly.
Like, so when you're paying $20, for a ticket, they're getting nowhere near that.
Exactly.
And then they have to pay the middleman, the distributor, and all the different things. And so when they're overcharging you for the concessions, it's because that's where they make their money.
Exactly.
They're literally making no money off the sale of the ticket. So it's a difficult thing, but that could be addressed with reducing the ticket prices, and by the way, reduce the middleman.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, there's no point for distributors anymore when it's all digital. Like, are you trying to tell me these studios can't just like beam that digital copy right to now? I mean, come on, we know that's capable. So
exactly,
I don't even know why there's a middleman involved anymore. And
we know about Google Drives.
That's right.
Like,
that's right. And in some cases, I know that they have eliminated some of the distributors, which the distributors were not happy about. But
Yeah.
hey, but I really do feel like that's the future. If you're going to save theater, that's the way you have to do it. And then I think there can be a balance with the streamers, and then it leads to my next point. If the theaters are going to be strictly event type films,
Yeah.
right? You're going to go see the Avengers, you're going to go see the big space movies or war movies and stuff like that, right? And then we talked about the artsy films. Then I feel like the Academy has to make a move. The Academy has
Yeah,
to
for
understand
streaming.
that this is how it's going to be. And these movies that are going to only show on streamers, these movies that have no shot now of getting into a theatrical release, you're going to have to change the eligibility rules
Yeah.
for these filmmakers to have a shot at winning.
Exactly.
Because, well, I mean, are you going to tell all of these incredibly talented filmmakers, these incredibly talented actors and actresses and directors and writers and all that, you've got no shot because you couldn't get in a theater?
Yeah.
Like, I just feel like that's...
It's kind of bullshit.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, you literally have your A-list filmmakers who have multiple Academy Awards making first look deals with these streamers now for television and for film. So, I mean, it's like you have to make a move, you have to evolve, and especially like our first thing that we said during this was fucking Corona. Like it kicked shit into high gear, and I mean, I for sure thought cutting the cord and theatrical experience was definitely going to be striving at least for the next 10 years, but now I'll be surprised if it's striving for the next 5.
Yeah,
Like,
I really do think the linear television is gone by 2025.
yeah.
I really do think so, and whatever that means, whether that means the streamers are tiered with ads or not tiered with ads, and or are they all grouped together or not grouped together, and I don't know, but I just don't see linear when you're struggling to put 2 million people in front of a show.
Right.
That's a problem, and I just don't see them. It's hard to go to an advertiser and say, hey, give us $50,000 for a 30-second ad or $100,000 for a 30-second ad, and we can't even guarantee you 1 million people will see it.
Right.
I mean, so
Yeah.
what do you do
That's
at that
the scary
point?
thing. And plus, on top of that, going back to the Oscars thing, like, would the streamers have to provide their numbers to the Academy to show, hey, a lot of people did watch this, or like to kind of compensate with the theatrical release, or like, I don't know. It's just all up in the air, and I feel like it's like that for every single studio in Hollywood right now. Everything's up in the air, and they're trying to just ride that wave and see where it takes it, because no one knows what's going to happen next year, the year after that, or in 6 months. Nobody knows what's going to happen. We might all be shut down again. So
I think I don't know. Maybe it opens the door for more films to have a shot if they change the eligibility rules and they kind of open up the doors for streamers or whatever. Because
Yeah.
I feel like, and hopefully maybe it reverses trend, because you just said like show the numbers. Did a lot of people watch it or whatever? I feel like right now, a film that does well in the theater, that does get a lot of people watching it, $1 billion at the box office or whatever, the Academy just shoves that in a drawer. They don't,
Yeah, they don't care about that.
They seem to be more artsy, and they want the films, not big superhero movies. And I'm thinking, well then, none of these films are being in theaters anymore.
Yeah,
These are the
exactly.
ones you want to nominate for Oscars. These are the ones you want to give the gold to, but yet they can't get in a theater anymore.
Exactly.
So if you don't change the rules and allow for the streamers to qualify, then what does that say? You're going to have to either start giving gold to superhero movies,
Exactly.
or something has to change.
Well, and I mean, case in point, Kodachrome, Clint
Yeah.
Eastwood, freaking Jason Sudeikis, and Elizabeth Olsen there. Like, that was an amazing movie with an amazing story to tell, and like barely anybody saw it because it's
Yeah.
on Netflix. It was one of the first like Netflix films a couple of years ago, and it's just like, come on now, like this is an amazing story, but nobody is talking about it because
Yeah.
of a streamer.
Exactly. There have really been some legitimately solid films on the streamers that, in my opinion, could have easily qualified
Yeah.
for Oscar and never even saw the light of day.
Exactly.
So, And as popular as Netflix is, as many subscribers as Netflix has, a lot of people didn't see Kodachrome.
Exactly.
And
That's
I
what I'm
was just
saying.
blown away by that. You're telling me Kissing Booth?
Yeah, it's
Which, I
fucking.
mean, come on now.
I
I
know.
mean, Kodachrome was infinitely better. Not to knock any of the filmmakers on Kissing Booth or any of the cast or crew,
No,
but I mean, Kodachrome was just an infinitely better film, and people didn't see it.
exactly.
And so I feel like even sometimes these streamers don't want to promote the artsy
The
type,
real,
the
like,
real story type
yeah,
films, and like I don't know, man. I think there's a place for those films. Motherless Brooklyn this past year.
yeah.
There's just
Not a lot of people saw that one as
no.
well.
I
Like
mean,
Honey Boy. Like,
yeah.
I mean, fucking that one could have definitely been nominated for best fucking film, but no.
And I don't know. I mean, the whole point of this conversation, right? Dive deep. Are the streamers going to kill linear? Are they going to kill theaters and everything? I feel like the answer is yes and yes. Maybe not kill theaters, but drastically reduce them and definitely kill linear. But if that is the case, if that is the direction we're heading, which it all seems to be,
Yeah.
then things need to change to give creators and people a chance.
Exactly.
Because if you're the whole point of the whole streaming is to broaden the horizon, to open the door, to give access to more people when they want it, how they want it,
Right.
as long as they want it or as short as they want it, then you have to provide that access for the creators as well, I think.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It's going to be tricky.
And I feel like, I mean, we talk about it sometimes. Like, that's what Netflix started out as, but now they're shifting focus to this tentpole type release schedule. And it was like, but you guys were making such great movies and projects from these people that nobody knows about, from these indie filmmakers and things like that. So Hollywood needs to change. I mean, the Emmys are hopping on that bandwagon.
Mm-hmm.
We saw that freaking streamers got nominated way more than network television. I mean, what? Netflix 160 nominations or some
Yep.
stupid shit like that?
Yep.
Like, so, I don't know, man. Definitely on the theatrical standpoint, for the awards, the Oscars definitely need to, like, reevaluate some things. And, like, Hollywood in general is obviously reevaluating and trying to learn what the audience wants basically out of streaming and how everybody's shifting towards that. So it's interesting.
Well, and also I think one thing that Amazon does really well that I wish the rest of the streamers would do, and I think there's a reason that 18 to 24 gravitates towards the old shows like Friends and stuff, right? Because you heard Friends everywhere. HBO pays this much for Friends. HBO is going to be this with Friends. Friends is going to be this. Friends is going to be that. But how much money did they spend or how much advertising did they do for an original show?
Yeah.
Nowhere near the amount of money that they pumped out to tell you that they got Friends. I think that Amazon does a really good job. You look at Handmaid's Tale, you look at Marvelous Mrs. Maisel. They do a really good job of promoting their original shows.
Yep.
And those shows are doing extremely well at the Emmys.
Well,
and
Fleabag,
different things.
Handmaid's Tale's Hulu.
Hulu, yeah, and Fleabag. But they do a really good job of promoting their original content.
They do.
I don't think the other streamers do nearly enough. So if you want that 18 to 24 group to go, oh yeah, we tune in higher than at 15%. You want 40, 50, 60% of people saying they'll watch an original show, then tell people about that original show.
Agreed.
I mean, they don't do it enough. They tell you all about the biggies that they're scoring, but they don't tell you about, hey, we've got a damn good original show that's pretty good too.
Exactly.
Perfect example of that is Friends from College.
Yeah.
You know, that
Netflix.
show was brilliant. It
Yeah.
was the perfect, if you were missing Friends, this was the show to dive into. It was absolutely brilliant. Nobody heard of it.
Yeah.
Nobody heard of it. Nobody watched it because nobody knew about it unless you were just like, you know, happened to be one of the rare people that came across it and was like, holy shit, this is great. You know, because all they talked about was how they were the go-to place for Friends.
Agreed.
But you're also the go-to place for this great show beyond Friends.
Exactly.
And had they done that, I think maybe, you know. So my thought on that, too, is do a better job of promoting your original content.
Yeah.
If you're going to spend all this money on original content, tell people. Tell people
Exactly.
this is coming. That we have this.
Exactly. And my ending thought is the Hollywood and Los Angeles and the entertainment industry mecca of itself, like, it's ever evolving. And I feel like right now the studios are trying to catch up to where the spectators are at. Like the spectators are up here and the studios are down here trying to chase what they want. So they're just trying to figure it out, man.
And the fans just need to chill.
Yeah.
Because I see a lot of fans and a lot of people like, what the fuck, everything this, everything that, blah, blah, blah. Guys, this is the evolution of the industry since the beginning.
Yeah.
You know, talkies replaced silence. Color replaced black and white.
Exactly.
Television kind of became a new medium above film. And then, you know, network was replaced by cable. And, you know, video killed radio. And just these type of evolutions, you know, DVD killed VHS. Blu-ray killed DVD.
Right. Like
streaming killed, Blu-ray. It's the natural progression as technology goes. So the idea of these streamers coming in and doing what they're doing, it was going to it was inevitable.
Exactly.
It was inevitable that it was going to happen. So chill.
Just calm down.
Just kind of like, let's see where the industry goes.
Exactly.
But you can't stop change.
Exactly.
So you got to get on board with it, and hopefully these streamers can figure it out, because I really do feel like the Big Five, we talk about them all the time, the Big Five, they're going to be dictating where everything goes.
Exactly.
So, I don't know, man.
I agree. But thank you guys for getting a little crazy with us, having this in-depth conversation about streaming and how it's impacted the viewership and just everything, especially right now with Corona. I mean, everything's fucking wild. So, I mean, thank you guys for watching in depth. What are your thoughts on streaming? We want to know. Be sure to comment below. And this is more content for YouTube, so we appreciate everybody for watching.
Yep.
Be sure to listen to 126 of Inside the Crazy Ant Farm this Friday on all podcast platforms, and the YouTube video will be up the day after that. And be sure to follow us at ITCAFpodcast, at Crazy Ant Media, and myself at JLoFantastic and
Crazy Ant Guy 1970.
That's right. We appreciate you guys. Get crazy, stay crazy. Thanks for streaming along. Deuces.